Week 3 Monday Night Football is must-win territory for the Cincinnati Bengals, and at least they'll have Tee Higgins back to help them in that quest. Let's break it down.
You are Locked On Bengals, your daily Cincinnati Bengals podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What up, Bengals fans, and welcome to another episode of the Locked On Bengals podcast. I'm your host, Jake Liscow. He's your host, James Rapien. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network here on Locked On Bengals, covering your team every day. Here to get you ready today for Monday Night Football. You're probably enjoying the Sunday slate of games as we speak. And, well, the everydayers know that we have a game preview for you for every game. Welcome back to the everydayers. Welcome back to those of you who make us your first listen, and welcome into everyone who's new. Of course, you can subscribe to make sure you don't miss anything as we take you through the Cincinnati Bengals season. Today's episode of Locked On Bengals is sponsored by FanDuel, where when you place your first $5 bet, you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. And James, this is certainly a must-win game at this point. Technically, you can get to the playoffs and achieve all your goals if you go to 0-3, but historically, that is very, very hard to do. So the Washington Commanders on Monday Night Football represent a game that this team really needs to win.
Can't fall to 0-3 for the first time in the Joe Burrow era if you're expecting to be this AFC contender in this AFC North powerhouse and this team that showed flashes of it against Kansas City, right? And they would be 1-1 if they played the way they did in week 2 and week 1. And the Patriots stink. That week 1 loss is going to age like milk on a 90-degree day in Cincinnati. I mean, that's really what it's going to do. And we saw that Thursday night. So yeah, it's a must win. And I think saying that is reasonable, even though you're right. You could look at the math and you could say, oh, well, there's still this many games. Doesn't matter. You have to find a way to get to 1-2. And you really have a 6-day stretch. It feels a lot like the 2022 slate where the Bengals start 0-2 and then they have a 5-day stretch, New York in the Jets in New York. And then you play the Miami Dolphins on Thursday Night Football. It's a 6-day stretch here where it's Monday night, and then you play the Carolina Panthers on the road. If you handle business, you feel much better going into a week 5 matchup against the Ravens. They played the Ravens week 5 as well in 2022. So there are some parallels here, but you have to go out and get it done. And so must win. I don't think you're wrong there. I think it's spot on. And I think the Bengals know it too, because at some point, you just have to start racking up W's, and it doesn't necessarily matter how exactly, right? There are some injuries that we're going to get to, but Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and now Tee Higgins active, you got to get a win on Monday night.
Well, and this is a defense coming to town in the Washington Commanders that should be exploitable. And you can also say that about the Bengals defense, the way Washington's offense has been going, and we'll dive into those topics. But with Tee Higgins returning and the offense essentially fully healthy, Tanner Hudson isn't going to play, but he would probably be tight end 4 anyway, the way last week went at this point. With your fully healthy offense this week, Amarius Mims even set to make his NFL debut if they choose to put him on the field for an extra offensive lineman package. We don't think he's going to start this week, or if he's needed to substitute into the game. You should start to see this offense clicking on all cylinders. And like you said, we saw some signs of it against the Chiefs, who have a much, much better defense than the Commanders. Even the Patriots have a better defense than the Commanders in terms of the ways they threaten you. Keon White having a bit of a breakout season for them on the defensive front. Their secondary, we talked about all week, is a good secondary. Washington doesn't really have those threats, and getting Tee Higgins back, especially against a secondary that is exploitable, let's say, and we talked about this a couple of days ago now, one of the worst defenses in terms of giving up explosive pass plays in the NFL. Maybe it's a Jermaine Burton week again to get him a couple of snaps, to get him a couple of those deep targets too. But Jamar Chase wants to get going. Tee Higgins is going to be eager to make a mark in his season debut. Tee Higgins will make it harder for the Washington Commanders to deal with Jamar Chase because they have a reliable threat on the other side of the field that they have to contend with. So I'm excited for the offense this week is what I'm getting at here with the return of Tee Higgins, with a porous defense, at least on paper, at least through 2 weeks. This is what I would say about the Washington defense that Joe Burrow and company have a chance to take advantage of.
Yeah, this is the type of game where the offense should, in my expectation, is for them to start fast. And yeah, you're shorthanded on defense, and we'll talk about matchups and all of those things. But if you start fast on offense and your offense has just got the gas pedal down, it should be okay. That's this type of matchup. Washington wants to do the opposite. They want to slow the game down. If you're the Bengals, you should be able to produce big plays. That explosive play rate should skyrocket this week. And it should because of the mixture of things. You're right. Part of it's opponent. Part of it's Joe Burrow should be even better than he was. Now 8 days, it will be 8 days after the performance against Kansas City when he was pretty dialed in, found Jermaine Burton for a 47-yard gain. Mike Gesicki, we saw the rapport there. Well, those guys are going to be active. And I would assume at least Burton will be active. But Mike Gesicki going to be active and going to be a part of this offense, as will Tee Higgins, obviously, for the first time this year, Jamar Chase. Like, it's really easy to see the path where this offense takes a big step forward, and it should. And that's why when you say you're excited about the offense, I am too, so much so that you think about that 30-point mark. And now's the time when you should see that take a step forward and get there, get to 30 plus. And if you can do that, that should be enough against a Commanders offense that it has some talent, is interesting, but has also been limited. And Cam Taylor-Britt made that known this week. So I think offensively, that's where the game starts for sure. You want to get off to a fast start. You want to score touchdowns. And that's something they haven't done. They haven't done both of those. They started much faster last week against the Chiefs, but they had to settle for a field goal. If you could punch it in for 7 on your opening drive with that crowd at Paycor Stadium on Monday night, the environment's going to be crazy. It's going to be a heck of a place to watch a football game, and that's to the Bengals' advantage. So I think the starting fast, it's been such a theme throughout the Joe Burrow era, but it's my expectation this week for them to go put 7 up on the board, probably on their first drive, which means that we're going to see Ryan Rico on their first drive, but I'm expecting a touchdown.
Which means we're going to see Ryan Rico on their first drive.
Yeah, which means that they'll go 3 and out or something because I'm expecting to score. Right. Like, so I'm setting the bar really high, and it's going to be like a 4-yard run,
right,
a 5-yard pass, and then they fell on 3rd and 1. And then, I don't know. I hope not.
I got you. I was confused. I thought you were saying, yeah, they're going to be successful, so we're going to see Ryan Rico. And I was like, yeah, holding a kick,
holding an extra point, baby. That's right.
It's a weird thing to focus on, I guess, but sure. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I'm sitting here thinking I have high expectations for the offenses in this game in general. We'll get there. We'll talk about the Bengals defense. We keep alluding to it. And then we're going to have a slugfest or something, right? Because they like to subvert our expectations when they play football games. And we do these previews and we talk about how things could go, should go, and then they don't go that way. But let's dive into some of the matchups we like. We'll stay on the offensive side of the ball. We'll stay on some game script related topics here as well, because I think that will be important in this game. You talk about a fast start and playing the football game the way the Bengals want the football game to go. I think that starts on offense, as you were pointing out, James, here as well. So we'll stay on some of these offensive matchups that we're excited for this team coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by DoorDash. DoorDash is the app you need right now. And I lean on it all year round, but especially during football season when time is even more valuable. Things are busy, things are hectic. DoorDash can help you get the food that you want, that you're craving, delivered right to your door. So Monday Night Football, it's Bengals, it's Commanders. You want to kick your feet up. You probably worked a long day. Well, DoorDash can have you with the food, give you the food that you're looking for delivered right to your door. And that's the beauty of DoorDash is DoorDash is going to be able to be that vehicle, that thing that's going to get you the food you're craving. So football is finally back, and it means it's time to order your favorite game day food. And by the way, It's not just full meals, it's snacks, it's drinks, and you can do all of that without missing a play. All you have to do is use promo code LOCKEDFALL24. That's LOCKEDFALL24 in the DoorDash app for 50% off up to a $10 value when you spend $15 or more on your first order. So you have an order of $15 or more, that's fine. Use code LOCKEDFALL24 for 50% off. It's a limited time offer and terms apply. Promo is not valid for orders containing alcohol. DoorDash, your door to game day greatness, your door to more. Download the DoorDash app now to order your game day favorites. Must be 21 plus to order alcohol. Drink responsibly. Alcohol available only in select markets.
James, I think that the biggest thing I'm looking at when the Bengals offense is on the field is, one, their personnel usage this week. Going to be very interesting with Tee Higgins' return. Do they continue to use 12 personnel at the rate they did against the Chiefs? Or, as Joe Burrow said, on a week-to-week basis, they could see more 11s, could see more 12. But their full complement of receiving weapons, Jermaine Burton starting to earn some trust and gain some momentum. It'll be really interesting to see that split. And part of the reason for that is that putting 3 receivers on the field this week might get you the most advantageous matchups from the Washington defense. And having the ability to pick which of those personnel groupings is going to get you the best passing game matchups for your weapons, I think is a really nice new piece in the Bengals arsenal this year of ways they can attack defenses that I'm excited to see this week with the return of Tee Higgins, because that secondary for Washington is not very scary. And while there are some issues on the defensive interior that we're familiar with in Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, it's not the scariest defense. You got to hold up in pass pro. We're going to say that every week, right? But it's not a screaming threat to me on paper. Instead, I just look at this secondary matchup with the Bengals weapons, and I'm really excited to see if Joe Burrow can pick it apart and put up a vintage Joe Burrow game.
Yeah, that's kind of where the expectation should be. And part of it is because of those wrinkles. Like, now you can go 13 and do your normal stuff that we're used to seeing and rely on Tee Higgins to win one-on-one because they're doubling Jamar Chase. You can move Mike Gesicki and have him in the slot in between those guys if that makes sense on a certain play. At the same time, we could still see some 12, and I think you should. I think that it's a wrinkle that works. Now, will they need to lean on it where it's 30 snaps at minimum for their top 3 tight ends, where you have 33, 33, 30 as far as snap count goes like it was last week? No, it probably shouldn't be that, and I don't think you need to go that route. At the same time, the Commanders still have a good interior defensive front. I think that we know at this point that the Bengals, they're going to be a pass-first team, even though there are people that say, run the ball, run the ball. I'm fine with 14 runs a week. That's fine with me. At the same time, you have these weapons. And how does Jermaine Burton fit, I think, is a question. How is Trenton Irwin just out of the offensive game plan now with T back? I think that's the real question here. Like, Burton offers something that plays any week, whether T's active or not, and it doesn't take a lot of snaps for him to make an impact. And that's probably an ideal role for him right now. But is this it for Trenton Irwin, so to speak, from a significant snap standpoint, or does he still get on the field for 15 snaps? I think that's a real question that I'm curious about, because obviously you have Andre Yosavash. Charlie Jones only played 2 snaps last week. Burton made an impact, but with Tee Higgins back, Jamar Chase expected to play 90+% of the snaps like normal. I do wonder about Irwin a bit.
I would think, and you tell me what you think, I would think that Trenton Irwin is wide receiver 5 at this point, and that your wide receiver 3 snaps are going primarily to Andre Yosavash and Jermaine Burton for certain sub packages where you want to get him on the field. And then they've got 12 to go to. So I don't know how much that leaves for Trenton Irwin, unless Tee Higgins needs to be spelled a ton in his first game back and he's only playing like half the snaps. That would be the only scenario where I could really see a path to significant playing time for TI this week.
And so what's interesting about that, just from an active standpoint, and the reason I hedged my bet earlier in the podcast with Jermaine is simple. Charlie Jones is active already because he's returning punts. So do you keep 6 active? That's the question. And I wonder how that goes. I really do. Now you have some injuries, so maybe it's easier there because you have injuries, but yeah, it's just something I'm monitoring because Charlie Jones is a guaranteed active. Obviously, Jermaine probably has played his way into that. So are you having 6 wide receivers active? That's usually not the case. That's all.
If they inactivate Jermaine Burton after what he did last week, they're going to ruffle some feathers.
No doubt. And I don't think that's going to happen, especially you hear Joe, what he said, Zach has been encouraged. Like, but I just don't know. I don't know what the play is there because there's still trust with Trenton Irwin. I know everyone's buried Trenton Irwin on social media. I don't think that that's the view of him in the locker room. So if they do have 6 up, fine. Who is down elsewhere? That would be my question. That's all.
I think honestly, it's only complicated because Charlie Jones has a return role because he seems to be buried on the offensive depth chart. Talking about wide receivers that are buried on the depth chart, like de facto, the reality of things is that he seems to be wide receiver 6 right now. And whether or not you think that that is the way that it should be, that's the way week 2 went. And maybe it was just a matchup. Maybe it was just that week's game plan. Maybe we see more of Charlie Jones this week. But it's not like we had a bunch of people asking like, hey, like people are asking about Chase Brown getting more run versus Zach Moss. Didn't have that question going to Zach Taylor and hear or Dan Pitcher and hear the coaching staff say, yeah, we need to get Charlie more work. He's earned that has not come up for Charlie Jones.
Yeah. And maybe it should. Maybe he's better than Trenton Irwin at this point. Oh
yeah. I think that's a fair question.
No doubt. And so that's what's interesting. Like, could Irwin be inactive? I don't know. Like by the way, this isn't just a Burton thing. It's could Irwin be inactive? That's
yeah.
And what that would say. So let's say Irwin is inactive for the Jermaine Burton, especially the Jermaine Burton. I don't want to say fans because every Bengals fan is their Jermaine Burton fan, but the ones that have been pushing for Burton, that would validate it. And you would know it 90 minutes before kickoff that, oh, Burton's taken a huge step forward. They trust him. Not that they don't if Irwin is active, but it would certainly be a signal there for sure.
And we know about practice squad call-ups at this point, correct?
No, they can do them. So that's what's interesting is Monday night, they can do them the day of the game.
Okay. So we do not know yet who will be called up from the practice squad for this game, and that could change some of this inactive math. So we'll move off the inactive roster math here, and let's transition to defense by talking about a topic that kind of features both the offense and the defense here, which is the game script. We talk about game script a lot. When I say game script on this podcast, I'm referring to really, when you simplify it, which team has the lead early, who's controlling the game early. If one team is in the hole, say a 14-point deficit in the second half, that means you have a lot more difficult of a time getting to your run game, getting to everything that you build off your run game, and you're forced to be a drop back passing team. Some teams, the Cincinnati Bengals with Joe Burrow, the Kansas City Chiefs with Patrick Mahomes when they're not playing against the Cincinnati Bengals, some teams can live like this and let their quarterbacks just be drop back passers, pick apart defenses, and get the ball to the right place at the right time when the defense knows the pass is coming. The Washington Commanders, at least right now in Jayden Daniels' young career, do not appear to be one of those teams that want to be down in football games. This is a team that, and we're going to talk about this a lot in the next segment, is going to want to run the ball, is going to want to let Jayden Daniels make plays with his legs, but has not been terribly proficient getting the ball downfield and throwing the ball on a consistent basis. So you get out to a lead early in this game, going back to a point you made at the beginning of the show, James, that puts Washington in a place where they can't play this football game the way they want to play this football game. And it puts the Bengals in a place where Trey Hendrickson can pin his ears back. And the defense doesn't have to be super reliant on a banged up defensive interior to hold up down in, down out against a team that wants to run the ball between the tackles. And you don't have to worry as much about this running threat. And you can make a team one-dimensional. A lot of the way you make a team one-dimensional isn't just by winning matchups. Certainly that's one way you can do it. If you just take away the run, then you can force Washington to pass. Another way you can do it is just control the game. And that involves getting out to a fast start and being consistent on the offensive side of the ball and letting your offense help your defense in a way that we haven't seen that yet this year. This would be a great week to start that trend and start playing some complementary football. if you're the Cincinnati Bengals. So with that being said, James, let's transition here and get to the defense coming up next.
Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel right now, America's #1 sports book. So let's say you get the hunch in the middle of the game. You can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more, so you can be on the same page, and on the same page literally as you place your bets. Right now, the Bengals a 7.5-point favorite on Monday Night Football. The over-under set to 46.5. Well, I'm going to give my prediction coming up in just a bit, but you got to get the FanDuel today, because maybe you think the Bengals are going to handle business and just go crazy against the Commanders. Or maybe you think that that's a lot of points, 7.5, and you think Jayden Daniels and company are going to win the game outright, or a backdoor cover late. Get in on the action with FanDuel right now, and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. All you have to do is go to FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com today. All right, Jake, let's get to the defense. And you're right. Game script is huge, especially for this defense, because if you're the Commanders offense, if you're Jayden Daniels, if you're Brian Robinson Jr., who is their number one back, I know everyone thinks about Austin Eckler, but their entire offense has been what Cam described it as: quick game, quick reads, and if it's not there, he's running, or they're handing it off to Brian Robinson on plays. Like, that's been their offense. Terry McLaurin has not been the deep threat that Terry McLaurin is at the NFL level. And so what do they want to do? They want to keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands and slowly move the ball downfield. That's what they did last week against the Giants, when they ended up having 7 field goals. Bengals legend Austin Seibert delivers a win for the Commanders, and it's because he was perfect, 7 for 7 on field goal attempts. And yeah, I think that's the key, is if you get out to an early lead on offense, well, then that takes some pressure off of your defense. But if the Commanders are able to get the ball early, go score, play with a lead, then that's exactly how they want to play on offense, which obviously helps their rookie quarterback, helps their young offense.
Yeah, still looking for answers in this running game, right? If you're the Cincinnati Bengals defense, they have not had those answers through 2 weeks. There's been different problems. In week 1, it was tackling. In week 2, it was more or less that the interior defensive line just was too banged up, couldn't hold up against a really good interior offensive line. And the strength of this Commanders offensive line is the interior, at least I would say. Trey Hendrickson should have a matchup that we like at left tackle. We'll see who's playing at left tackle for the Commanders between Cornelius Lucas and Brandon Coleman, the rookie out of TCU. They've been rotating those guys. You can't really rotate tackles in the NFL effectively, but we'll see what the game plan is for the Commanders at left tackle. If it is the rookie, I don't expect him to last very long with Trey Hendrickson. But the one thing I would say is, at least this Bengals defense has been dealing with Lamar Jackson for years. And most of the guys on this defense have been dealing with Lamar Jackson for years. When you talk about Jayden Daniels' ability as a playmaker to break the pocket, to run, he's not Lamar Jackson, but he has some of that playmaking ability. And so while I'm more worried about the designed running game and Brian Robinson, who's been very effective this year, and the Commanders' ability to just run the ball, slam it up in there between the tackles, and just wear you down, hopefully Lawrence Guy can help you a little bit there.
Yep.
Just compared to the alternatives, which don't really exist. And what, BJ Hill is doubtful, Sheldon Rankins is out. Is that correct? Do I remember?
Neither one's going to play. I think
Yeah.
BJ Hill has a shot next week, but he's not playing this week.
So not great, right? And hopefully Chris Jenkins can play. He's questionable, I believe. They're going to try to play him with the club on his hand. They're going to see how he does with the club on his hand. But I think that's the plan right now there. So hopefully you get something out of Chris Jenkins in his debut. Hopefully Lawrence Guy can help you a little bit. But if you're looking at this defense and you're thinking, man, I don't love that matchup, it's the defensive interior. Until it's not, it's the defensive interior, and it's finding a complementary pass rush piece for Trey Hendrickson. This week, the challenge is more keeping Jayden Daniels in the pocket, trying to make him play within the structure of the offense, tackling well if the Chiefs, or not if the Chiefs, I keep calling them the Chiefs, if the Commanders do go to a lot of that quick game again, And cornerbacks do have the opportunity to tackle Brian Robinson in the backfield on some of these duo runs where everything's blocked up, but there's a free DB there to fill from the edge. That's what happened in week 1 a lot against the Patriots. Those are big deals this week because if you can do those things, I'm fairly confident in the Bengals secondary. We'll see what's going on with Von Bell. That's the other big one to watch in terms of containing explosives, a very explosive offense here in the Washington Commanders in terms of their ability to produce big plays. Von Bell, I would guess, has been a big part of the Bengals in limiting those plays and preventing those communication breakdowns and coverage busts. And he's currently questionable. It sounds like there's some cautious optimism that he'll be able to make it back from that back injury this week. But that's another one that we're going to have to watch. So there's still some questions, right? And an offense that has been productive, has moved the ball in 2 games this year.
Yeah, I think Von is going to play. You're right. Like Zach Taylor said he was optimistic about Von's status, didn't want to declare that he was in on Saturday when we talked with Zach. I think he's going to play. I know that there are a lot of listeners and a lot of Bengals fans in general that are like, oh, yeah, it's Jordan Battle season. And I'm going to be very clear. This has nothing to do with Jordan Battle. The Bengals will be worse if Jordan Battle is starting and Von Bell is inactive on Monday. They will be worse on defense. So I don't know why you would root for that. I really have no idea why that would be. And I get it. You want to see Jordan Battle. You think you got to roll. I get all of that. The Bengals have been good at, to your point, containing explosive plays. They've been good against the pass. And Von Bell, we know, is a capable tackler. So why wouldn't you want him on the field for this game, a must-win game? Of course you do. So assuming he's not going to be limited by the back, and I don't think he would be if he is active, I totally get it, why you would want Von Bell out there. And I don't understand the other side of it, outside of just the shiny new young object. I get it, but Von hasn't been an issue. He's been good through 2 weeks. But yeah,
it's PFF grades is probably what it boils
Couldn't
down.
care less about.
Well, I'm just explaining where it's coming from. And Jordan Battle has made some exciting plays for this team, but
no doubt it's not an anti-Jordan Battle thing.
Yeah,
it's like, it would be different if the Bengals were giving up a bunch of deep plays and Von Bell was a big. He's not playing like Nick Scott.
Yeah, if Von was struggling, it would be a different conversation.
No doubt. And it's great to have Jordan as your third safety, and he would be the guy that gets the start, by the way, for those wondering. So we'll see what happens with Bell. I'm just hoping Bell's out there because they're better with Bell. And there's obviously confidence with him right now. That said, Lawrence Guy, I think there's a real path for him to, what would you say, the third most snaps in that defensive tackle room? Could he get to the second most snaps? Like, I think he's going to play a ton. I do.
It depends on Chris Jenkins. If they feel like he's effective, if they feel like he can play like a full complement of snaps, I think that is the X factor there, the determining factor there, because it seems like they still see Zach Carter for better, not probably for better or for worse, as a guy that should get a lot of snaps on the defensive interior. And to Carter's credit, he has made some plays this year. It wasn't as good in week 2 against the Chiefs. I think he struggled there, but yeah, I think Lawrence Guy could show them that he is a more stout run defender pretty quickly and could earn his way into that role. The issue that compounds from the defensive interior depth problem is they just haven't had much of a pass rush there. And I don't see that really getting better with Lawrence Guy. Hopefully Chris Jenkins gives you some juice there, right? But that's not what you're necessarily expecting from him early in his career either, outside of a spin move that has been pretty effective for him. So we'll see if we see the Chris Jenkins spin move this week with the club on his hand. But yeah, they're going to need Chris Jenkins and Lawrence Guy to be a shot in the arm for that defensive interior.
Yeah, they are. And hopefully those guys can help. Hopefully they're pieces that show flashes and then you can build on it and be a big part of it moving forward. The other part of this is Sam Hubbard. And as far as stopping the run, containing Jayden Daniels, keeping Daniels in the pocket, all of those things, I think they're relying on Hubbard a lot this week to do that. The linebackers tied for second right now in the NFL in tackles. You mentioned tackling
about
well.
Things I don't care about tackle stats, but
hey,
good for them.
But like the path for this defense being effective on Monday night probably means a lot of tackles for Jermaine Pratt and Logan Wilson, where they're getting tackles within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage and 4 yards of the line of scrimmage. I mean, I get it. You don't care, but they need those guys to be able to tackle in space. So I think that would be a huge fact. Like if you see Logan Wilson's final stat line and he has 4 tackles and Jermaine Pratt has 6 tackles, I don't love that. It doesn't mean anything, but it could mean a lot on how the game goes.
Yeah, I mean, you need a lot of context for tackles, right? Like, are those the guys that should be making the tackles? Are they missing tackles they should be making? That's what I care about. I don't care who makes the tackle as long as the tackle is made, right? That's why I don't care about tackle stats. And sometimes they're very misleading stats. But yeah, I mean, if Logan Wilson and Jermaine Pratt have 20 tackles each and they're making all those tackles within 4 yards of the line of scrimmage, that means they've probably had a pretty awesome game. And it's just context for tackle stats. Good for them for being where they are on the leaderboard. Sam Hubbard did take a step forward in week 2. And again, the right tackle for the Commanders is former Chief Andrew Wiley, right? Former Chief.
Mm-hmm.
And so I keep talking about the Chiefs because there's some former Chiefs, Nick Allegretti as well, starting at left guard for the Commanders on this offensive line. Sam Hubbard needs to play another solid football game this week, and always excited to see the secondary right now. The early returns on the secondary have been exciting, and the Commanders haven't necessarily been the most adept at challenging secondaries, but Terry McLaurin, still a good football player. De'Ami Brown, still a guy who can take the top off a defense at any given time. And so while we're definitely focused on the run game and the quarterback making plays in this game, it's always going to be exciting to see the secondary early in this season as they continue to show that they're remade unit in the right direction, while we wring hands over the defensive line looking for help for Trey Henderson. Any final thoughts here? Do you have a prediction for Monday Night Football, James?
I do. I think the Bengals offense gets going early, and this is one of those games where the Commanders hang around. They're never completely out of it, but this Bengals offense is going to put up their first 30 piece of the year. They score 31. The Commanders finish with 20. The defense does enough against the run, holds the Commanders to a couple of field goals despite some long drives and a couple of touchdowns as well. So 31-20, the Bengals get their first dub of the season.
Will be a lot like the first road game of the season for the Commanders. Their week 1 37-20 loss in Tampa. Just drawing some parallels there for some previous Commanders performances. The Bengals have been good on Ring of Honor night. We'll have a couple of players, Corey Dillon, Tim Crumray, inducted into the Bengals Ring of Honor on Monday night. They've been pretty good in those games. Haven't lost yet, and hopefully that continues this week. We'll have you covered after the game here with post-game thoughts, analysis, and reactions on the Locked On Bengals podcast late on Monday night when that game is concluded. Until then, enjoy the game. Enjoy your Sunday of relaxing football. Thanks for listening. Hoo day, and have a good one.